Welcome to Electripreneur Secrets Radio. I'm your host, Clay Newmeyer. As always, my fabulous co-host, Joseph Lucani. We're here on a mission to help every electrician master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. Joseph, how are you doing today?
It's a phenomenal day, man. I get to be surrounded by other electricians. I get to be hanging out with you, and we're going to deliver some real fire today. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, some of that fire came right from our RSS, our roundtable support session, which we do every day, 5 days a week. I guess that's not every day, every weekday, 5 days a week, just like this podcast, just before the podcast with our paid level clients. And we always get some inspiration, some ideas. And that's really why we started this. We thought, we could help a lot of people and start moving the needle on this industry that still sees 80% fail in 3 to 5 years. It's an awful statistic. And one of the things that tends to sink our ships is the inability to get leads when they're not just calling us, the inability to scratch work together. In fact, in Canada, I know this is a Canadian statistic. Jason, welcome. This is a Canadian statistic, but in Canada, of that 75, 80% that are failing, 49% later say the reason for their failure was there was no market. That to me is just crazy. It doesn't make sense.
It's wild sauce.
Why go into business if there was no market?
It really wouldn't make a ton of sense to do so, because assuming you've got one of the largest land masses, you would assume that it's full of people. But at the same time, you're like, all right, is there truly no one who wants electrical services? There's no one. They're all running on Tesla power sources that have wireless electricity. No one has anything they need to fix. Doesn't make sense.
It's crazy, but I'm going to assume that that stat actually converts over into the US as well, because it tends to happen. And Russell says, lame excuse. I agree. Dustin, yo, how you doing, brother? Thanks for joining. Here's the thing. It's not that there's no market, and especially for electricians, guys, electron flow is not going to stop. Welcome, and congratulations. If you're a master electrician, you chose a fantastic trade. It's right there with shit needs to run downhill, isn't it? Power's not going anywhere. So how do we make the most of it in these times?
So what I think we should be doing is we should really be evaluating why we believe it in the first place, right? You have to take care of that conquering belief before you're able to actually take action on it. So I know we've mentioned it before. Do you mind if I touch on it again?
Yeah, please.
So for any of you electricians out there that are saying it's slow season because it's the economy, it's slow season because it's the time of the year, it's slow season because it's after the holidays, I want you to know that the only reason it's slow is because you've allowed that mentality to sink in. A lot of times what we would run into was, November would pass and people would say, we're not going to buy because Christmas is coming. Obviously I've got to buy Christmas gifts. And then after Christmas would come, be like, well, we're recovering from Christmas. We can't buy now. And then February would come and they'd say, well, we can't do it now because we got tax season. But in each of those months, did the power ever turn off? Did their needs change? Do the lights need to stay on? They have the safety concerns that need to be addressed that they weren't aware of. Of course they are. It's just now, today, what we're going to be talking about is how to connect you to those people, as well as how you can go through and let them know that the reason you're letting them know this is in their interest rather than in yours.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And we come on here every day touting about having a process and the power, the backbone that gives you. Now I'm going to rock a lot of electricians' worlds in saying this, but would you guys agree with me if I said we shouldn't be paying for marketing before we master an organic process? Why put coins into a broken machine? If the only way you get work is by paying Google to find a lead to call you or to help give you more exposure so someone actually calls you because they have a problem and you happen to be somewhere on this list of people that they look down, will you not agree with me that that's just one place where people end up if they didn't have opportunities or solutions presented to them prior to that?
Correct. A lot of people buy within their own networks. So the thing is that wouldn't it be better to be the preferred vendor instead of just someone that Google spits out like a vending machine?
Absolutely. And I think people miss this huge, and this is a huge plug for it. The stuff we talk about is not new. It might be new to electricians because we're not trained in business, but a lot of the fundamentals of the very processes that we know, love, and teach are based on thousands of years of human psychology. Know, like, trust. Do you provide the service? Can you build that fair exchange, price to perceived value? What else is there?
I mean, really, at the end of the day, they need to like, trust, and respect you. If they don't do all three of those, you don't have a sale. But if you do have all three of those, you have a customer for life. So the goal is always, how can I take, well, the opportunity I currently have and then connect it to someone that I can highlight my level of skill? And it brings to an attention the good neighbor policy. I know you wanted to talk about that as well. Do you mind if do you feel like that's something we can tack on today?
Yeah, definitely, because that's an organic method to spread your reach, to help position your company, increase your marketing, which what's marketing? Marketing is having a message and putting it out there to an audience. And if your message is congruent with the needs of that audience, you win.
Correct.
You'll build more relationships. So what does the Good Neighbor program do for us?
So the Good Neighbor program can apply in two different areas, whether you're in a condo development or an apartment complex, or whether you're in like a suburban or city neighborhood. So I'm going to explain and touch on both little areas. Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So let's say you're in the easiest one, you're in a suburban development, right? You go to one home, and what are the odds that if it's a complex or development, that they weren't all built around the same time?
I'm thinking they were.
In addition to that, if they're all house to house, what are the odds that they're not all done by the same builder?
I'm thinking it was.
Correct. So let's say you go to a home and you find out that something was improperly installed, right? So whether that means you find an undersized electrical service, or even more so, you find one that's just strictly getting to a point where it's starting to fail. Like, how many times have you gone into a home and you find out that they've got a Bryant panel in it? And it's like, oh yeah, it's a 45-year-old panel. And that's why it's starting to have issues. Would it not make sense to think, well, this is original to the home, and all the other homes in the block were wired the exact same way with the exact same time? Would it not benefit the neighborhood for us to at the very least let them know that we can help prevent them from having a safety concern?
We should see. If you have that knowledge and you don't check, right?
That's
Imagine being a doctor and you get a group of 50 people, all that were near a power plant, and one of them gets cancer at an early age. That's striking. Wouldn't it make sense to reach the others in the area and check?
Yeah, at the very
Wouldn't they
least.
want to know?
Correct. It's just doing good service. So this is how that might look. The good neighbor policy has a couple different structures. So you've already identified one particular fault that your customer has, whether it's a meter that's outside that's rotting because it's original to the home, or the inside service is a Federal Pacific or a Zinsco or whatever it is. All you can do is you would say, all right, I'm going to complete this job. I'm going to thank the customer for it. On my way out, I'm going to go to the neighbor to the left. I'm going to go to the neighbor to the right, and we go to the neighbor directly across the street. Because these three people are the most likely to have watched you go to and from this customer's home. So all you would have to do is knock on the door, not leave a door hanger, knock on the door. Your goal is to engage with someone, connect, and let them know, hi, my name is Joe with Serviceable Electrical. Hope I'm not interrupting you. Do you happen to have 20 seconds that I can borrow your time? Sure, what's up? Just want to let you know, we were doing some work for your neighbor, Chris Jones, and great guy, really loved him. But he
Love
brought
Chris Jones, by the way. Great guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it brought to my attention, that, hey, there's a scenario that we found actually there was a safety hazard that was installed by the original builder who built all the electrical infrastructures in this community. So what we're going to be doing is we're providing a free service just to make sure that no one else in this neighborhood actually has that same safety hazard going on. There's no obligation. There's no quote. We just want to make sure that there's nothing else going on. Would you be opposed if we wanted to take a look to see if we can help you with that?
Me personally, if I'm Chris Jones, no. But for the sake of argument, anyone that would have an objection to this, fuck you.
Correct. So they close the door and they're done. The thing is that if nothing else, then you can just put a door hanger on the door and say, I completely understand. If I'm not the right fit for you, all I wanted you to know is that if you're looking for premium level service, I'm happy to support you. Here's my number. Here's my card. And you walk away to the next house. But Sure, go ahead.
I just want to introduce one big key frame here.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, there's a because frame. We've talked about some really important words, and, but, because, and those alone deserve their own podcast. But right here, I want to address this. When you're at the door, it's because you're working for Chris Jones right now. They know Chris Jones, it's his neighbor. Chris said it would be a good idea if I came and checked in with you to see if you were having the same issue. That gives you a because frame, which disarms that slam the door in your face mentality.
100%.
Super important. Sorry to interrupt you. I needed to throw that in there a little extra.
I will never be mad if you interrupt, because every time you do, you're always adding something of value to the group. So by all means, dude, carte blanche, you're all good.
All right.
So we got that situation where you've gone in, you've promoted them. And whether they close the door on you or not, that's okay. Because what you're doing is you're also creating the understanding of, hey, I'm your local electrician. I'm working in your community. And I just wanted you to know that I had gotten notified that this particular home is built the same time as the other one, and we found a safety concern in it. Would you be opposed if we were to offer you that level of service? Your neighbor Chris mentioned that it'd be something you would appreciate. So giving them that answer is always helpful. Now, if you can do that to the neighbor to the left, the right, and across the street, what are the odds that at least one person is going to say, yeah, take a look?
Yeah.
And then, did you pay for that lead?
No. It took some time, but if you're currently in a position where you're saying, hey, no leads are coming in, we don't know what to do. This is that organic method mastery we're talking about. And it's one of very many, by the way.
Correct. And this is just a bare minimum action.
As you do this and you get one door that opens, you'll find just from your energy alone, without them conversing, more doors will open. But once they converse, more doors will open. And we actually at some point call this a drip campaign. That's something we talk about in email marketing or text message marketing. But as you slow drip, what happens to your know, like, and trust?
It starts to go up, because the thing is if people get exposed to you, they start to be like, oh, he's relatable. He's a person. I understand this person. He's not just a commodity. That's Joe. That's Clay. Okay, yeah, I'll be willing to talk to them.
Genuinely cares about my neighborhood and my building.
You're right. In addition to that, now there's another way you can enhance this even further. So for some of you who work in condo developments and apartment complexes, I want to share something that I had a lot of success with. So there was a condo development that we were working with for a property management company. And what ended up happening was we were sent into these areas, and it didn't look like a great area. Like, those calls where you're like, I'm going to change a couple outlets, and that's going to be the extent of what I can do. But what we were finding was that every single panel was an old GE slim breaker. Like, it was just an old GE panel, and they were all built when the building was constructed. They were all original, and they were starting to all signs of failure. Like, the bus bars were starting to get burning, and the breakers were starting to fail. And the consistent theme was that the living room and the kitchen lights would flicker. It was almost every single call we were going to, they'd say, hey, by the way, can you take a look at my kitchen and my living room? They're flickering. And the answer almost always went back to, wait a second, the breakers are physically melting on this circuit, and that's why they're having a problem. So what we did was we actually made a campaign where we started going across, not only knocking on every single door, but starting to mail out letters as well, and saying, we know the reason why your kitchen and living room lights flicker. Give us a call and we can tell you how to fix it. The amount of calls we had, because people would be like, tell me, like, is there something going on? And especially since we were contracted by the property management company, it was like, oh yeah, we're representing this company and we're here to take care of you. Go ahead, Clay.
I just want to insert something, because the equation of life exists here, and that equation is cause and effect. If you look around, people with physical maladies are literally buying pills before diet and exercise to solve symptoms of a problem that is the root cause. The same is with any system. And it's the same reason that you don't get a bunch of people calling you for a panel upgrade or service upgrade or panel change. Any of that stuff is not sexy to a homeowner, because that has to do with cause. So I love what you just said about, okay, lights are flickering. That's a symptom that annoys people. They would pay for that pill to take that pain away. And to that, Brian, I think this sort of answers what he's asking. I understand creating the sense of urgency, But how is everyone backing up the claim of a service failure to the homeowners? Is it just a visual confirmation or performance? So I believe that begins to answer that as well. But what do you think about that question?
I'm happy to touch on that. So in other words, just to make sure I understand it correctly, it's almost like a how do you back it up, or how can you describe that there's a problem in a way?
Yeah.
So there was a couple different things that can be done. And as always, it really depends on the specific reason why you're targeting. So for us, we had burned panels. So what we would do is we would literally take videos of the flickering lights in the kitchen and living room. Like that was what was going on. And we had it on file. And since all these units were cookie cutter, they could see their own unit with the lights flickering. So it made it feel like it was home. And the thing was, it was like, yeah, that happens with me too. And then I would show them another slide and be like, hey, if you wanted to see, this is what we just did. And it was, you see the panel, you open it up and it's like a tiny, like 8-space panel with slims that are all twimmed out, and they're all burning. They're all melting. Like there's literally like scraping him off the bus. And then I could always slide further and be like, and this is what we fixed it to. Totally. And I can guarantee the lights will never flicker again.
I love that. I love that presentation. Yeah, and Brian confirmed that correct. And then Edwin kicked in the live group and said data. And I want to touch on this. It's one of the huge things that is really, really left in the dust. And it's something I've talked about many times. The person with the longest list of people and their needs, desires, and problems wins. You win with staffing. You win with clients getting work. And the problem that most electricians have is really they only have NDP information, need, desire, problem information from the first bucket. And I call that bucket, they tell us. So in other words, people are going to reach out to us with a concern and say, I need an electrician over here. Like a demand call or an opportunity call and say, hey, I'm interested in talking about this and getting a price.
Oh, I got something on that.
But that's only bucket one, right? There's 2 more buckets, guys, 3 buckets of NDP that we should all be paying attention to. Number 2 is we offer. Offer what? Well, there's 2 kinds of offers, incentive and information. What Joseph's talking about is going door to door in a situation where we're very confident and really niched down. We know what's going on in this area. So what's the likelihood that these people have the same problem? It's the very question you asked me earlier. That's a strong informational offer. Hey, you guys might want to know about this. There could be a potential fire hazard here, and here's some symptoms of it that you may have noticed. Are your living room lights flickering, right? We better check the panel. You might find this. It's a free check. It doesn't take much. Yes or no, and a look, right? Piece of cake.
You actually inspired me to think of something else.
Okay, I got one more bucket. Just let me finish the buckets, because otherwise they're gone and everyone will be going, what's a third bucket?
Forgive me, my humblest apologies.
All right, thank you. The second bucket we offer, we said incentive or information. Here's the problem with incentive offers. That means you're going to cut price off, and that means you're going to cut profit off. So in every case, you want to arm yourself with information to help increase perceived value. The third bucket, and most important, and loops full circle back to this, is inspecting and properly understanding the electrical system that you're working on. So the next time you're in the neighborhood, even if they don't buy something today, again, you're adding to that list the data that Edwin's talking about, right? Chris Jones. Hey, Chris, it's Clay over at Service Loop Electrical. I know it's been about 9 months since we were over there. How's everything running, by the way? Yeah, the new panel's good, no problems, no breakers trip. Oh, no, good, great. Hey, I was just driving by and I saw your street and I thought of you. We've got some more work with some of your other neighbors this week coming up. And I know there was a couple things we didn't quite get finished with. Do you think you'd have time for us to swing by and take care of those? Is that something that would interest you? That simple. If you have the information, you can make another offer. And even if he says no, you called him out of the blue, you thought of him. So where does know, like, and trust go? Up. Okay. End rant. Thank you, Joseph, for your patience. I had to get that out there.
It's all good. And the thing is that when you're ranting, it's not a rant when you're putting out solid information. So
I appreciate
by all means, I love what you say.
Did you lose
So
what you had?
no, I was
All
gonna
right.
say it's like still trapped there, but I ended up having it where we actually could be doing something very similar on maintenances and inspection calls, because so many people are like, "Oh, I'm going to go do a generator tune-up. I'm just doing an AC tune-up. I'm doing whatever kind of tune-up you're doing." And the first question comes into, is it safe to say that everything's running perfect? Like your system is just hands down, this is just spinning like a top. A lot of times when customers say, when you say, is everything great? They're like, oh yeah, it's perfect. And we love it. It's running great. We know for a fact that it's usually not, right?
Yeah.
So you can ask a question and you double down on that and say, okay, so just to confirm everything's perfect, that would mean you don't have any flickering lights in the house. That would mean that there's no unusual odors coming from it. You don't smell fish in any of the walls. You don't notice any switches that are getting hotter than others. You never have any kind of the GFIs tripped for any reason. Like that would describe a perfect home, right?
Yeah.
And very rarely will people, even things like, hey, there's no switches in the home where you have to have one on to have the other one on. Like, this is reverse travelers, but
Yeah.
how many homes are like that? So when you say, okay, so just to confirm it's perfect, that would mean you don't have any this, or this. Now the customer's like, oh, actually, I didn't think of that. I have a basement switch that I have to leave the top light on, the top switch on, and otherwise, if I turn it off, the bottom one won't turn on. Okay, well, thank you for letting me know. If I had a way of resolving that while I was here, what would happen then? We just get it taken care of. Okay, cool. Let me take a look at that while I'm here. So there's actually more work you can get on every call, in addition to doing outreach campaigns.
Yeah.
So not only can you work on the calls that you don't have, but you can also work on the ones you do have.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when you get the neighbor's house? Your good neighbor program just stretched another house too.
Mm-hmm.
And again and
And
again. Now let's talk about the nerdy side, the number side, just quick. I love this
mm-hmm.
part. What would happen if all of a sudden half of your schedule was in the same little area, little neighborhood,
Logistics would be super down.
right? Less travel, your cost of goods sold go down when you're that efficient, working on the same problem day in, day out in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a superpower for your business.
I completely agree.
Profits up, time down. It's awesome. I love this. And here's the
In
best
addition,
news. I got to offer this too. If you're someone watching or listening to this right now and your eyes are rolling, going, I don't want to do that. And you got different reasons. We call it self objections, but there's reasons you don't want to do this. And none of them have to do with proof that it doesn't work. This is the barrier to entry. This is the barrier to success. The fact that you're feeling that means others are too. And that's the reason they won't do it. And you should.
damn.
Damn.
It's like that's really true, because if you think about it, like the people who are willing to take action are such a small majority of the population. You have 80% of people who are saying, I'll wait for someone else to do it, or I'll wait for it to get easier, or I'll wait to do it later. And is it unusual that 80% of businesses are also the ones that are looking to fail within the first 5 years? That 80% of those who don't take action are also the same 80% whose businesses go under?
Pareto principle, man. It's the real deal. And some get lucky. And honestly, you don't want to be one of those people. We talked about this yesterday a little bit. Being lucky and getting somewhere with that. Let's say you build an established million or 2 million a year revenue organization, right? Luck doesn't increase the EBITDA multiplier, which is what a business sells for. Luck won't get you that, right? Things that the EBITDA multiplier, the valuation of your business favor is the longest list with the most needs, desires, problems identified, club memberships, the most client diversity, long-standing staff, and these are all things that are driven by process. Consistent process and diagnostics. You agree with that?
I said, well said. It's
Yeah.
just like nothing I can add to that. You're completely right.
It's a mic drop. Even if you got lucky, even if Google took you there, it's not going to increase the value of your business. And when things happen that need a pivot, you'll be susceptible. So we might as well learn these organic things, make it work. Go ahead.
I just want to add something about luck. A lot of times people will say, well, I got lucky or he got lucky or whatever it is. If you can do something by chance, you can do something on purpose. We just need to develop and adopt a system that can foster that. The same can be said with failure, though. If you fail, you have to look at what process am I following, and is this going to more likely produce fruit or rot?
Yeah.
What am I trying to do? So anytime it involves luck, the data is essential to knowing where your needle's supposed to move.
Yeah, man, for sure. It's huge. And just so we're clear, guys, this is a process that should always be run. It's not something we do just when it's slow. The challenge is, and Joseph said before we went live actually, was that we tend to get really busy just based on seasonal changes. Things align, things go well. And when we get busy, we rest on our laurels. And what that means is when things come easy, we tend to not work as hard. We show up more. There's tons to do. We're there. But then when it slacks off, what do?
We slack off too, unfortunately.
We
Like
rest.
if you think about it, like imagine, I'm speaking to all you business owners out there. Imagine you're in your van and you're doing 12 to 16-hour days, and you're doing that for 3-4 months straight. And then February comes and it's a little bit of a slow season. Maybe you want to play catch up. Maybe you want to take a break. Maybe you want to take a vacation. I'm not faulting you for wanting to do those things, but are you doing it because it's a strategic time to do it? Or are you doing it because you've literally burnt the candle at both ends and this is your first chance to let it recharge?
Totally.
Once you allow yourself in that kind of position, it's very, very hard to keep your eye on the prize. Because if you can't be in a place where you're avoiding all this mental fatigue, you won't have the mental equity to thrive.
Yeah. And honestly, it's the whole foundation, the reason behind KPI, why we track key performance indicators, why we have those performance targets. I can tell you one thing, if your paid advertising slows down and it's not being fruitful and you don't have a method to meet those performance targets on the lead generation side, then you're certainly going to see a dip in the revenue side, right? And the way that accounting works is whatever falls beyond your cost of goods sold is your gross profit, also known as a contribution margin, meaning it contributes to the overall fixed expenses or overhead that your business has. And so if you don't keep earning on the top end, your gross profit starts to fall. And so your contribution to paying those bills falls. And so does the overage that would have been net profit. So that's how that little chain works. That's the accounting 101 of it. I don't want to go deeper than that here. It's not going to be effective. And we've been almost 30 minutes already. We keep doing this.
Yeah. The thing is, we're having too much fun. That's the thing.
I know. We love this stuff. Okay, action, guys. Big action. Run the Good Neighbor program. We literally gave you the instructions. I didn't write it down for you. We're not giving you our type ups here. This isn't a written, typed up, done for you thing. But if you took notes, use it. If you didn't, listen to it again, take some notes, run the play. All-star action, here it is. Don't just run the play and say it didn't work. Run the play 10 times, then come back to the table, find what worked, what didn't, make an adjustment, and run it another 10 times. You will get work from this, and you will continue to serve your community this way. It will exceed your reputation. It will be fruitful. What do you think? Anything to add to that, Joseph, or did that nail it?
Man, I was going to say, you're on fire today, because normally there's something I could usually drop in afterwards, but I'm like, God damn it, he's right again. I'm like, all right, well, hey, but nicely done.
Okay.
Nicely said.
It's snowing like a bitch where I am here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And so I should go shovel the driveway now. If any of you others are living in igloos like I am, go ahead, drop a 3 in the chat. Otherwise, guys, no worry about the snow. We're going to be here again tomorrow. If we get snowed in, we're just stuck here longer.
Amen. The benefit of being remote is we can always, as long as the internet doesn't go out, we can keep putting out content.
All right. Thanks for joining us. And as always, we're on a mission to help every electrician master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. I'm Clay Newmeyer. This is my wonderful co-host, Joseph Lucani. Can't wait to talk to you guys again tomorrow. Cheers to your success.